You know, when you send over that article from Texas Watchdog, it really got to me. It's not just about the numbers, the budget. It's about values, really, how we decide what's important as a society, how we support those who need it most.
It's the contrast that's so striking. The article puts these two things side by side. On one hand, you have this huge investment in Texas state parks. $1 billion.
$1 billion.
$1 billion.
Yep.
And on the other hand, you have the funding for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and it pales in comparison.
It's a huge difference and has such a real impact. The article said something like 156,000 Texans are on waitlists for these really important Medicaid waiver programs, and those waivers can be the difference between someone living at home with family or having to go to an institution.
And the article does a great job of showing the human side of this. It tells the story of Juanita, a mother who's been taking care of her son with autism, right? And she hasn't been able to work because there's just no support services available.
16 years. I can't even imagine waiting that long for help. It's not just a delay. It's like life is on hold, years that could be spent learning and growing and becoming more independent.
Absolutely. The article makes it very clear that we're not just talking numbers here. These are real lives, real families going through incredibly tough situations. There was another story about Michael. He's been waiting for support since he was a teenager, and now he's in his 30s. And his parents, they're getting older, and they're worried sick about what will happen to him when they're gone.
That's heartbreaking. It really highlights the urgency of this issue. And it's not just the families who are suffering, is it? The article also talks about the direct support professionals, the DSPs. They're the ones providing the direct care for people with IDD.
And they're often doing it for such low wages. The article said the average is only about $10.60 an hour. It's no wonder they have a hard time finding and keeping qualified people.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. The dedication it takes to do that job, and for so little in return, it's a systemic problem that affects everything.
It's not sustainable, is it? How can we expect to have good quality care if the people providing it are barely scraping by themselves?
Exactly. And the article makes a good point that this isn't just about compassion, although that's definitely a part of it. It also makes a strong economic argument.
I'm curious about that because it's easy to see why parks are an easy sell, right? They're tangible, they bring in tourists, politicians love to get their picture taken at a park opening.
Exactly.
With the big scissors and everything.
Precisely. But the article points out that people don't always see the long-term economic benefits of supporting people with IDD and their families.
It's about looking at the big picture, right? Not just the here and now.
Exactly. Imagine if families like Juanita's and Michael's had the support they desperately need. Family members could work, contribute to the economy, and we could see a reduction in the need for more expensive state-funded care down the road.
It's like investing a little now to prevent much bigger problems later on.
That's a great analogy. And the article goes on to talk about why this funding gap exists. And visibility is a big one, right? Parks are easy to understand, easy to see. Politicians love those photo ops, cutting ribbons at a brand new park.
It makes for a good picture, right?
Right. Big smiles, everybody wins. But when it comes to supporting people with IDD, a lot of that work happens behind the scenes, at home, in care facilities. It's not exactly front page news.
It's true.
And that makes it easy to overlook, easy to forget about when it's budget time. I think the article is really trying to get us to rethink how we value these different kinds of spending.
It's almost like we're hardwired to pay attention to what we can see, right? The immediate stuff, instead of the long-term impact of things like social services, which are just as important, even if they're not as visible.
That's a really good point. And the article does acknowledge the other side of the argument, too. It recognizes that parks do have economic and social benefits.
Right. They create jobs, boost tourism. Plus, there's the value of having green spaces for our mental and physical health.
Absolutely. But the argument is that those benefits shouldn't come at the cost of ignoring the needs of some of our most vulnerable citizens. It's about finding a better balance, a way to support both.
Finding a way to invest in our communities in a way that helps everyone, right?
Exactly. And that means being willing to look beyond just the immediate needs and thinking about the well-being of all our citizens in the long run. The article argues that, ultimately, neglecting the needs of those with IDD hurts us all in the end.
It's interesting how the article frames this not just as a policy issue, but a moral one, right? Like there's something fundamentally wrong with prioritizing recreation over the basic needs of those who need our help the most. It really makes you think about our responsibility as a society, Do we have an obligation to make sure that everyone no matter their abilities, has the chance to live a good life, a fulfilling life.
That's the heart of it, isn't it? And this isn't just a Texas thing, right? This struggle between funding, between parks and social services, it's something that communities all over the country are dealing with.
Yeah, it feels like one of those fundamental questions, How do we choose where the money goes? Especially when it's between something that's, a nice to have versus something that's absolutely essential for people to survive.
And it forces us to really examine our values, doesn't it? What kind of society are we trying to build here? One that focuses on the things that are flashy and popular, or one that takes care of all its members, even when it's hard, even when it's not glamorous, you know what I mean?
And I think that's why you sent us this article, right? You're wrestling with these questions too. And I gotta be honest, I don't have the answers.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what makes these deep dives so important. It's not about having all the solutions. It's about really thinking about these things, challenging our own assumptions.
Absolutely. Sometimes I think what we need isn't a quick fix, but just, a little discomfort, Something to make us stop and think. Really think about where we stand on these issues and what we can do about them.
So we're coming to the end of our deep dive here. And I'm feeling, a sense of responsibility, I guess. A commitment to looking deeper, to advocating for the people who aren't always heard. How about you? What are you taking away from this conversation?
I think for me, it's a reminder to never stop asking the hard questions.
Yeah.
To challenge the way things are. And to remember that even something like a budget, it's not just numbers on a page. It's about morals, about choices, about who we value as a society.
It's true. It's a powerful reminder that we all have a part to play in making things more just, more equitable. So for everyone listening, we'll leave you with this. How do we support everyone's needs? How do we create a society that's both vibrant and compassionate? Keep thinking about it. Keep the conversation going. That's what these deep dives are all about.